could I interest you in a whole lot of games that have come out recently or will come out in the near future? Alright, so here we are. Part 3 of this months-long series about demos I played last Steam Next Fest back in June. I told you back then I still had a lot to go through and, well, I did. Again, this is why it's a good idea as a developer to not pull your demo immediately after the festival ends, if you can. Once more, we'll go through each demo in alphabetical order. Also, I forgot to put the developer names in the corner for part 2 like I did for part 1. I mentioned this precisely so I won't forget this time. Alright, let's give these demos a look. Welcome to Strig's Game Café, everyone. Have a cup of Steam Next Fest. I admit, I was never too big on stealth games. I don't hate them, to be clear. A lot of the games I like have stealth sections. I just don't typically play games where stealth is the main mechanic. However, I am a big sucker for narrative games, and Eriksholm, The Stolen Dream, is both of these things. Players take the role of Hannah, a girl searching for her brother Herman, who apparently did something to become wanted by the police. You have to evade guards with the game's isometric view, while making your way to the next objective and solving puzzles along the way. I do like how certain sound-producing environment elements come into play both in your favor and against you, as well as how certain encounters have a certain scripted timing to them, like cover that appears at a certain moment, or a bunch of guards that you have to evade in a certain order. The puzzles and ways to avoid capture were both interesting and intuitive. I have to say though, at one point I got caught by the guards and the game immediately reloaded me in a position where I couldn't escape. So I went into the menu and selected the option to restart the whole section, but then the game had no sound and the dev filter stayed on. If this video comes across the dev team, you might want to fix that. The city of Eriksholm, in which the game is set in, is a Nordic city inspired by early 1900s Scandinavia, and it really comes alive in the gameplay. You can listen to conversations between NPCs, gather contextual clues found about in the environment, and even just look at the environmental storytelling, like the multiple mentions of a disease called heartpox in these buildings. The whole mystery of Herman and the chapter being titled What the Boy Took also intrigued me, and I want to know what larger conspiracy is taking place in the city. Eriksholm, The Stolen Dream releases on July 15th, 2025, which means it should be out by the time this video goes up. Do you like top-down action games, looter shooters, and ducks? Then check out Escape from Duckov by Team Soda. The name is kinda self-explanatory on this one. It's a post-apocalyptic top-down shooter with a bunch of ducks as characters. You can customize your duck however you want, and after leaving your bunker, you can explore to find materials, weapons, food, and a bunch of other stuff. You do need to pay attention to your food and water meters to ensure your survival, but as far as I've played, starvation and dehydration aren't really big threats. Instead, most of my deaths came from being knifed and shot at by other ducks. Feels funny to say that one out loud. When you die, you have to do a good old corpse run to get your stuff back. When taking everything back to the bunker, you can complete missions, craft things for the base, upgrade your own abilities, and even re-customize your duck. Or, as the game puts it, regret looking like this. I will say that the game felt really slow at the start, given your microscopically small inventory size, but the game loop was interesting enough to keep me hooked. There were also some inconsistencies and errors in the game's text, but I'm optimistic that these things will be fixed. Escape from Duckov will release sometime in 2025. Arguably one of the most stylish retro-style games I played in Next Fest, Everdeep Aurora by Nautilus Games, is an adventure game and puzzle platformer where you play as a small cat called Shell, who wakes up to find her mother missing and goes to search for her. It's got stunning pixel art visuals in Game Boy style with palettes that change depending on the location you're in, and some good old 2D platforming exploration that includes both a drilling mechanic to destroy blocks and get around, While for the narrative side of things, you can get a bunch of dialogues, collectibles, and mini quests, like finding these kids in a hide-and-seek game inside a mansion. Oh, and you can also dress Shell up with a few accessories. I do think the soundtrack deserves some praise too. It has a really nice cartoony feel, and the song in this crane minigame goes harder than it has any right to. With such charming visuals and charismatic characters, the underground adventures of Everdeep Aurora seem pretty promising. Everdeep Aurora is out now. When talking about 3D platformers, I don't think I often put a spotlight on the ones that are almost purely about exploration. The good old 3D puzzle platformers. Gecko Gods by InResin is one such game. You play as this tiny gecko climbing over walls, eating different types of bugs, and solving puzzles to explore ancient ruins dedicated to the eponymous Gecko Gods. The ability to walk over pretty much any wall in the game makes exploration very open. Perhaps a bit too open, to the point where I found it easy to get lost with the vast terrain I could explore. Still, finding several little secrets in this temple was fun, and advancing to upper or lower levels by climbing up or down does lead to some interesting design choices. In most other games, a switch high up on the wall or on the ceiling would mean you'd need to activate it from a distance, but in Gecko Gods, if you can see it, you can pretty much reach it. While it does cut down on the challenge, at least for the puzzles I solved in the demo, I do think there's a potential for interesting level design based on the layout. Like, can you imagine the kind of thing a level with shifting gravity could do for a puzzle platformer where you can walk on walls? On top of all that, there is a bit of combat and item collecting as well, but if I'm being honest, the combat is really simplistic with only a lunge attack, and I never really understood what these sigils were for. I did have a lot of fun eating different types of bugs though. I think the game also teases that eating critters from different places will be a bit of a side objective in the full game. Gecko Gods will launch in the final quarter of 2025. Aesthetics are definitely one of the easiest ways to draw attention, and when I saw this particular level-based platformer, I folded immediately. Hirogami by Bandai Namco's Singapore and Malaysia studios is a 3D platformer centered entirely around paper aesthetics. You play as Hiro, a master of the art of folding, who can fight enemies with a fan, glide on the wind as a sheet of paper, and turn himself into different animals to gain their abilities. Hiro's goal is to protect the realm from a strange digital force known as the Blight, which is corrupting the world and possessing its inhabitants. As you go through each level, you solve puzzles, find secret areas, and try to complete certain objectives, like finishing a level without taking damage. Hirogami really goes all out on the presentation. The soundtrack complements the visuals really well, and the art direction is on point. I like how the character animations look like they have less in-betweens. It gives the origami characters a kind of retro 3D feel to them. The combat is not that complicated, with Hiro having pretty much just one attack move outside his transformations. The interesting part is when the game turns battles into puzzles, like this armadillo that you can't damage directly, so you have to lure it into these spikes. It happens a few times and actually gets a bit harder due to the different layouts and obstacles. Another cool aspect of Hirogami is when you have to collect different types of paper mid-level in order to repair structures with magic. It's used very sparingly in the demo level, but I wonder if the full game will reward players that go out of their way to find these materials. I think the only issue I had was with the camera at certain points. In a handful of situations, I ended up being unable to see a gap on the floor or overestimated how far I could jump. But other than that, Hirogami was an overall pretty solid 3D platforming experience. Hirogami will launch on September 3rd, 2025. If you're into management sims, and especially management in fantastic settings, give a try to Hotel Galactic by Ancient Forge. Your goal here is to transform a rundown hotel owned by a ghost named Grandpa Gustav into a 5-star tourist spot for strange creatures from outer space. Hotel Galactic mixes 3D and hand-painted visuals to create a Ghibli-like anime style. The opening is certainly stunning, probably one of the best opening cutscenes I've seen in the Next Fest. When it comes to actually managing the hotel, you build new rooms, fill them up with furniture, and craft various upgrades to your hosting experience. Then you assign the characters working on the hotel to perform these various tasks for you. You can even set what kinds of tasks they'll prioritize. Once you're ready, you can start receiving guests. You send them to their rooms, take their dinner orders and cook for them, all the while catering to some of their less obvious needs. I will admit some of the systems took me a while to get used to, and I felt like the pacing of the onboarding was a bit strange. Like sometimes I would just sort of hit a point where I would keep trying to make and decorate rooms, and the game would just let me without any clear guidance. It was only later that I realized I was still technically in the tutorial section and that I had to make a particular action to progress. The game also promises a focus on story, and perhaps because I spent so much time on the beginning of the game, I didn't really see much of it when I stopped playing. But I think it's fair to just chalk this one up as being my fault, if there's some deeper narrative to be found in the demo. That said, I do think it's worth checking it out if you're into management simulations. Hotel Galactic launches July 24th. Ever got to build or fix something and have that great feeling when it's put together? Kaizen, a factory story by coincidence, is a puzzle game that captures that feeling. The game is basically an assembly line simulator, where you use welders, mechanical arms, and riveters to put products together. From alarm clocks to toy robots, you have to organize the pieces on the board and move them on a timeline to get the results you want, flipping the products around or moving them to introduce new pieces. I will say I never really expected to have such a cozy experience in a puzzle game like this. Plus, the moment when you wrap things up and get to watch the product get made multiple times in assembly line style is always so satisfying to watch. There are multiple ways to solve each puzzle too, and you can try to optimize your production to solve it with less moves and components. There is also a story element to Kaizen too. The story is set in 1986 in Japan, and the player takes the role of David Sugimoto from the United States, Indiana to be more specific. He goes to Japan to start working at Matsuzawa Manufacturing, specifically in their international sales team. But when he gets there, the job is actually at one of Matsuzawa's old factories. That's where the production line gameplay starts. In between each level, you get short scenes with David and his co-workers, along with some letters sent by his parents, moving the story along with every product you complete. Overall, I was positively surprised by how polished the interface is and how the gameplay, though simple on paper, can sometimes stump you. Like in this moment where my dumb ass wasted like 10 minutes before realizing I had put the arms of the robot on the wrong side. The levels are really short, but I'm curious about the variety of things you make in the full game. Kaizen, a factory story, is out now. In the mood for a bullet hell RPG where you have to survive in a magical world without having any magic? In KARANEKO by Nekoda, you play as Karam, a boy who's caring for his little brother Nayan after their mother passes away. Things start out pretty normal, decorating the house for Christmas, playing a legally distinct Toho game with Nayan, going grocery shopping, and getting into a short fight with a former friend. Soon after though, we reach the point where things get weird. You're suddenly living in the dorms of this academy, entering fights against mages and talking to strange cat girls. Story-wise, I think the mystery of it all was what compelled me to play for as long as I did. The game explained just enough to keep me interested, while also keeping most of it secret. Like, what is this, an alternate dimension? Did Karan swap places with a version of himself from another world? What's this about people who are revealed to be fake and turn into black blobs? I, for one, am intrigued by all of this. But I have to say, I do have some issues with the dialogue. Not necessarily what each line is conveying, but more so the way they're written. There are quite a few spelling mistakes and stilted dialogue at times, which not only break immersion but make sentences hard to understand. Which is really funny considering a character in the game speaks like this. The combat has some issues too. For one, the regular attack you use for most of the game is really clunky to use. Basically, you wait until this little zone appears on the field, then go inside it and press Z. The problem is that unlike in, say, Undertale, which this game clearly derives inspiration from, you have to do this at the same time as you dodge enemy attacks. Meaning sometimes, it's just straight up impossible to both attack and dodge at the same time. Not to mention the bullet formations coming from your foes are sometimes clustered together in a way that ensures you will take damage. Also, when the turn is over, the enemy's attack doesn't dissipate immediately, and you can press the attack command again straight after. Meaning sometimes, this happens. Finally, there isn't really an incentive for winning fights, at least not in the demo. I didn't really get any experience or money from them. Maybe this is just due to the specific circumstances most battles happen in the demo, but still, for a battle system that wants to be intricate like this, it would be good to have a reason to do it besides just for the sake of playing the minigames. With all of this said, I do think the enemies have pretty varied attacks, and one battle in particular teases that you actually have multiple party members, with the leader being in the offensive while the others provide support, like shields and access to special attacks. I have to say, KARANEKO is still quite rough as an RPG, but I still put it in this list for a reason. I do think that if the issues I outlined are fixed in the full game, it could end up being a genuinely enjoyable experience. As I said, the world building and characters already caught my eye this early on, and the battle system can be refined into something very strategic. Imagine being able to change your party formation mid-battle, change who's attacking and who's providing the support. I think there is a spark of something good here, it's just not shining as brightly just yet. KARANEKO's release date is listed as coming soon. I'll be watching closely to see how this project develops over the course of the next few months. Who knows? Depending on the updates, we might give this one a good shot. So, we're officially done with part 3. According to my planning, there should be just one more part left. Then it's back to the essays. Thank God, or it would already be next fest again by the time it was done. Maybe for the next few fests I'll try making longer parts, though I think I might easily reach the 2-hour mark given how things are going. Do tell me in the comments if you'd prefer things that way. To reiterate what I said last time, I hope all of you watching this will have found a new game or two to look forward to. And of course, if you're a developer of one of these games, and this video somehow made its way to you, then best of luck, regardless if it's already out or not. My name is Strig, and thank you for your patronage. If you're leaving already, please consider leaving a tip in the form of a comment and a like. And if you're interested in coming back, don't forget to subscribe and ring the notification bell on your way out. Thank you for visiting Strig's Game Café.